No, it's not better. Okay. So I will present a paper on assessing the efficiency of changes in land use for mitigating climate change. So this whole question started from the evaluation of biofuel policy support and the treatment of land use change in greenhouse gas emissions assessments. The attributional life cycle analysis does not take into account land use change emissions, which is an issue because then it can lead to biases in the evaluation. There are two land use change emission related. One is the direct clearing of vegetation when there is a change in land cover and land use. And another is the reallocation of uses even without change in vegetation. For instance, you were doing maize and you still do maize, but reallocation of uses from food, for instance, or feed to bioenergy can also lead to indirect land use change through the markets and the satisfaction of demand. The economic models assess the land use change. They assess both the direct and indirect land use change, and they also factor in some change in yield, area, demand with price and trade effect can be decomposed and with a wide range of results. The consequential LCA also takes into account the direct and indirect land use change by increasing the scope, in general, to include the import from a country where there is direct land use change. And this issue is still controversial and there is no overall accepted way to represent the land use change and associated emissions. So why is it important? It's important because if you take a life cycle analysis per unit of area without the land use change emissions, actually that implies that the lowest possible production will be the best in terms of environmental impact because you will use less input, and this maximizes the land use. So this leads to favor very low yields, and to satisfy the demand leads to a lot of land use and so a lot of emissions associated with land use change. When there is only direct land use change taken into account, there is different results very different results actually, when there is vegetation replacement and when there is none. So if there has been a change like 5 years before, and then the assessment, or if the assessment is directly a replacement with natural vegetation, the result will be completely different. Although, if the agricultural use is stopped, there will be natural reforestation. Natural vegetation will regrow without any cost, and so there is some reversibility in natural vegetation replacement that is not taken into account in direct land use change. And when it's by unit of product, there is a bit less biases toward low input use because it's relative, but still, and for instance, the difference between locations, crop in a desert and in an equatorial climate, that would lead to very different natural vegetations are not taken into account. The economic models integrate the opportunity of land use, but they do not compare based on environmental performances. There's a lot of effect of prices, of relative prices in particular that leads to a lot of hypotheses and representation that are good if you want to look at the overall economic effect. But if you want to look especially on environmental performances, it will lead to a lot of other effects that are happening. And in particular, the price effect are in general unintended consequences. If you have some increase of yield because, for instance, of a biofuel policy that take up some land, you can say, oh, it increased the environmental efficiency, but actually you have an increase in, this is not directly an effect of having some biofuel, it's an effect of taking up some land. So there are two effects that are mixed and should be separated. So to construct land use efficiency indices that are not prone to those issues, the idea is first to separate demand and production. Production is considered as a benefit because when you produce some agricultural commodity, you avoid emissions elsewhere. So the production index is determined with a constant demand. On the other hand, for the demand, when you have a demand for an agricultural commodity, it requires some emissions and the land use change, so it's a cost. To avoid the price effect, we use very simple hypotheses. One is to have some constant yield, and the other is for production to have unchanged global demand. So it will only, if there is a change in yield or production, it will only reallocate somewhere on the world, but the demand is fixed, and it's very different from most from attributional LCA, for instance. The idea is to give a carbon value to every location and production, and also separate direct and indirect effects. And for biofuel, there is a comparison with fossil fuel. So for the indirect and direct emissions are separated. For the indirect emissions, some average coefficients are used, assuming the current production location. That means a fixed trade structure. There are two terms, a cost of carbon, which corresponds to the replacement of or regeneration of native vegetation. So it's to take into account the time, we use time discounted CO2 value with a constant carbon price, actually. And there are two methods. One is to consider the loss of vegetation, and the other is to consider instead the increase of vegetation, but the values are similar. And there is also, we also take into account the average production emissions that are avoided indirectly. The local production emission and carbon storage are separately evaluated, such that it's possible to have a very precise evaluation based on local data, while the indirect effects are based on global data. So the overall carbon benefit that is obtained is the sum of the avoided emission elsewhere, that the terms of the cost of carbon and the average production emissions. So these two terms, this term and this term, you also take into account the production emission on the land you are looking at. Also, there is a term for the carbon storage, in particular when there is some afforestation, and there can be some fossil fuel substitution for bioenergy. For the demand, it's very simple. We have the consumption multiplied by the cost of carbon corresponding to land use change and the production emissions. So here is an example to show a bit the result of these carbon benefit indexes. So it's an example taken in Brazil, in the Brazilian Cerrado. It's based on some life cycle analysis of beef and sugarcane and soybean. So what you can see is that you have a positive carbon benefit that is related to the fact that when you are doing beef or soybean, for instance, you're avoiding some deforestation and natural vegetation replacement elsewhere. So that's the green part. So, for instance, if you take the beef system 1, the green part is like 6 tons of carbon avoided, while if you have a much more intensive beef system, so the beef system are from 1 to 5 are more and more intensive systems. The very intensive beef systems avoid much more deforestation and natural vegetation replacement elsewhere. In orange, it's the net avoided production emission, that is the production emission minus the average production emissions for this product. And there is lower production emission for the extensive system than for the intensive system. No, sorry, there is even more emission for the extensive system than for the intensive system, because for livestock you have the enteric emissions that also decrease when the beef eat more digestible crop. So if we compare now the different land use, we can see that soybean is more efficient than extensive beef system, but less efficient than intensive beef system. Sugarcane ethanol is not really interesting because it doesn't, I would say, only replaces fossil fuel, but it doesn't allow to replace some agricultural use elsewhere. And the reforestation is actually better than soybean in terms of overall carbon benefits, but less interesting than intensive beef systems. So here is another example just to show that if you compare the maize-soybean rotation, that is the first line, with the carbon benefit, with the second generation ethanol, that's the 3 last line, only with very high yield, it's only with very high yield that you get the same carbon benefit again, because the maize soybean rotation is very intensive in this location, and so can displace a lot of land elsewhere. We made a bit of other comparison. I will only show one, which is on the organic versus conventional in Sweden. So we compared organic and conventional peas and wheat, and actually the organic systems are much less interesting because the yields are quite lower. So even though they are less, in general, less avoided, well, actually it's not even for the avoided production emission, it's not so much less. But the effect of land use is much more important, and so the organic the organic systems appears to be less interesting in terms of overall carbon benefits. So I will pass that. So with this, in terms of consumption, it's possible to compare the different diets. So here it's the coefficient for the whole world. So we compare diets considering the global average crop emissions, and we can see. So it's a typical. The baseline is typical European diet, and there are some change in reduction of meat, vegetarian, and switching to monogastric and vegan. And this time it's a cost, it's only emissions that are associated with the different diets. In gray, it's the emission associated with land use change, and in yellow, the production emissions. And you can see that all the different reduction of meat and substitutions lead to less emissions, but because in the vegetarian case there is some milk which still use a lot of land, the switching to poultry or pork appears to be more interesting than switching to a vegetarian diet. But the vegan diet is still the most the one that leads to the most decrease in emissions. So now for some bit of discussion. First, the error bars are based on carbon stock evaluation parameters, which are some very uncertain parameters. To handle the time and compare the production emission that are annual and the change in stocks, we use discounting of the carbon value, which means that it is sensitive to the change in carbon price and to the discount rate. So we assumed a constant carbon price and the discount rate, and we test different discount rate. This cost of carbon and the average production emission evolve over time as yield change and production emission change. It's very much focused on carbon, so a lot of other elements are not taken into account, especially pesticides. There is an implicit assumption of inclusion in markets, and if it's not the case, the carbon opportunity cost and the average production emission should be adjusted to the location that that really provide substitution for production. There is an equivalent with cost-benefit analysis, but only under an assumption of constant yield and fixed total demand, and also if one considers that the net cost and are equal, or the carbon price and the net cost difference are exactly the same. And a last comment, it used the average for the ILUC factor, which is different from the marginal, from the consequential LCA. So in economic terms, the approach of the carbon benefit considers that somehow there is a reason why the land use is spread as it is. And conversely, in consequential LCA, you consider that it's only the most efficient land use that will correspond to the change. And lastly, the use of that kind of coefficient, it's mainly to evaluate overall greenhouse gas emissions and to be able to set targets for change. It can also be used as a factor in attributional LCA to include indirect emissions. And it can also be compared with economic model to be a kind of benchmark to try to understand why economic model would differ from that kind of purely biophysical, I would say, assessment, and to challenge the effects that are in the economic model, especially in terms of change in consumption because of price effect and change in intensification. It cannot be compared to actual evolution because for many reasons it changes over time and it's some counterfactual. And it's not directly adapted to the evaluation of actual policies, as demand and yield are not controlled in that case, while we control demand and yield to be able to compare really the different land use. And it's not very adapted to study systematic change either. Thank you.
Thank you.